Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Conspiracy Corner. My name is Dr. Marquis, Vice President of Productions at Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Last week we discussed that there were no skeletal remains of giants in American museums, yet in museums throughout the world you can find evidence of their existence. We also discovered that there was a high concentration of giants in the ancient land of Canaan. And they were put there, if you'll refer back to part 1, to stop the prophecy of the coming Messiah from ever happening. Now, in this installment, which is part 2 that is called Stone Circles, we're going to examine another aspect of giants and demonstrate that there was more going on with ancient giants than most folks realize. We discovered in part 1 that there was approximately 1 million giants in the ancient land of Canaan. They had been sent there to prevent Christ from being born. But when we look into this, there was other things that was going on that we really need to take a good look into. If we look at this map, directly above the northernmost point of ancient Canaan in Istanbul, Turkey, there is an area known as Göbekli Tepe, which is indicated on this map with a red dot. This area in Turkey has at least in the last 15 years become an archaeological hotspot. The remains of ancient stone circles had been accidentally found in this area, as I just stated, about 15 years ago. These stone circles are massive and quite impressive. And the stone circles, which were used as main supports, which you'll see in this photo here, are equally impressive. The stone pillars average around 19 feet in height and weigh around 15 tons each. As of this date, it is uncertain how huge this complex is, but it is believed that only 10% of this complex has been uncovered over the last 15 years. Now, the big mystery about this area known as Göbekli Tepe is, who built it? Since archaeological excavation began in this area, no tools, no building tools, carving tools or anything have been found to this date. And so the mystery only deepens. How are the pillars and, the stone circles built then? Now, if we subscribe to the notion and theories as put forth, by that television show Ancient Aliens, we would be forced to believe that aliens from outer space built those stone circles. As a matter of fact, if you listen to that show long enough, you can't even blow your own noses without an alien being responsible for it. Ancient Aliens inevitably dictates that man was nothing more than a stupid hominid who was lucky if his own brain could generate enough electricity to get his feet to move forward. Seriously, folks, just about anything that involved the ancient world supposedly happened because of aliens, according, to that ludicrous show. Man was too stupid to do anything for himself. Yet, when you listen to that show, all of the so-called experts say things such as, could be, maybe, perhaps, we think, it appears to be, if, and, but, maybe, all of it. Very, very few times do those so-called experts state anything as a definitive fact, let alone have hardcore evidence to support their theories. At best, they're only guessing. And those people, I tell you, they drive me and other of my colleagues crazy. Now, I may sound old-fashioned here, ladies and gentlemen, but I believe mankind back then, just as he is today, was inventive, creative, and as the Bible describes us, intelligent. So then, getting back to the question, who built Göbekli Tepe? Ancient evidence tells us that aliens didn't build that place. I'm convinced by all of the known evidence that giants built stone circles such as Göbekli Tepe. When we check into the cultural stories where these stone circles can be found, I have always heard of ancient giants that resided in those areas at one time or another. Now, in the area of Göbekli Tepe, there was an ancient warrior king known as Darius the Mede. In this stela, we can see the tallest figure in, right around the center of this stela is the individual known as Darius the Mede, along with a number of Persian soldiers behind him. Notice how tall Darius and the Persian soldiers are in comparison to their prisoners. It could be argued that the reason Darius and the Persian soldiers were depicted, to be so huge was because they were the victors in their campaign and were purposely depicted to be that huge because of their huge military might and skill. In other words, their physical size was blown up to represent their huge military might and strength. However, there are many cultural stories and other things that do tell us that Darius the Mede was exceptionally tall. So I believe this stela is another piece of the evidence in this case. Plus, if you'll recall from our last installment, giant double-headed axes standing around 11 to 12 feet in height had been found within the same region of Darius the Mede. And Göbekli Tepe is around 793 miles away from the ancient land of Canaan, where the Bible clearly points out had been inhabited by giants. As explained in DVD 9 and 10 called Aliens, Fallen Angels, or Antichrist within my series called Secrets of the Illuminati, it is my belief wherever you find stone circles, you will also find cultural stories and sometimes evidence as to the existence of giants. And thus far, my hypothesis has proven to be correct. But let's go take a look at other stone circles and see if my connection between them and giants are correct. Directly above Göbekli Tepe is another ancient area known as Nevala Kore. As you can tell by this next photo, Nevala Kore has the same type of ancient stone ruins. Huge stone pillars forming circles dot this entire region. In this one archaeological dig site is what is believed to have once been a private courtyard in this photo. It's quite apparent that the sites of Göbekli Tepe and Nevala Kore has a degree of sophistication and engineering skills. Nevala Kore is only 50 kilometers away from Göbekli Tepe and resides well within the same area of Darius the Mede, the ancient giant that had lived in the distant past. As with Göbekli Tepe, Nevala Kore could have been built by giants. However, it could be argued that these areas was a fluke, an accident, and therefore doesn't support my hypothesis. So, let's go to other places around the world for further evidence then. London is considered to be the heart of England and one of its major cities as denoted on the right of this map within the red circle. Around 93 miles away from London is an area known as the Salisbury Plain, denoted by a red circle towards the left and down of London on the map. In this area is the most famous of all stone circles, Stonehenge. Stonehenge is 9 miles from Salisbury in Wiltshire and about 85 miles more or less away from London. Built around 3000 BC, Stonehenge is visited every year by millions of tourists around the world. Throughout this area of the world, archaeologists believe that there were approximately 1,000 such stone circles. But were there any giants that resided in this area? In Geoffrey of Monmouth's influential 12th century history of the rule of Britain, there was at least 20 giants that was led by another giant known as Gog-Magog. In John Milton's History of Britain, it says that before the name of the island became known as Britain, it was Albion. And on this island, that would eventually be named Britain, were giants. And according to certain cultural stories, a giant had been responsible for building Stonehenge, as you can see in this pictograph here. So, going by various sources, once again, we find that stone circles had been built by giants, this time in Great Britain. Russia. In the southern Ural, just north of the Kazakhstan border in Russia, is a stone circle. This archaeological wonder in Archaeum, or is sometimes referred to as the Russian Stonehenge. According to the dating, Archaeum was built somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Now, that would put its construction in the same period as that of Stonehenge. In very similar fashion, Archaeum resembles Stonehenge in its final construction, as you can tell in this next photo. But are there any stories to tie this stone circle together as we had previously proposed to that of giants? On July 16, 2014, in Kazakhstan, not too far away from Russia's Stonehenge, Bronze Age giants had been reported to have been unearthed. And if you check on the internet, you'll find the skeletal remnant of ancient giants that had been found throughout many of the different regions in Russia itself. Once again, the hypothesis holds to be true. Where there are stone circles, there were giants. And as I previously stated, I believe it was these ancient giants that built those ancient stone circles. Now let's take a look at Sweden's Stonehenge. In ancient Scandinavia is a stone circle called Älvstena, or what translates into the American English as Ailes Stones. A team of researchers believe that this Swedish Stonehenge in this photo here was built over 2,500 years ago around the Scandinavian Bronze Age, and was built as an astrological calendar with the same underlying geometry as England's Stonehenge. Plus, the Swedish countryside is home to many similar megalithic structures. So, once again, we have another stone circle built during the Bronze Age and can be used as an astrological calendar as that of Stonehenge. However, are there any cultural stories of giants related to this area of the world? Going back through thousands of Scandinavian years, we find the culture is littered with ancient accounts of giants. Plus, according to Swedish newspapers, there are accounts of giant skeletal remains having been unearthed. But those are distant lands, some would say. What about here in America? Are there any such stone circles in America? Well, this is going to shock you, but there actually are. Let's go to Heath Massachusetts. In that area of Heath, Massachusetts, as you can tell in this photo, this is the area known as Burnt Hill. On Burnt Hill, well, I should say Burnt Hill is made up more or less of imperfect lines of stones. You know, these great megalithic standing stones you'd see in other stone circles. And some of them do appear to form stone circles, and, you know, similar to those we've already gone through. And so it makes you wonder, who built those? Now, there was another place which I visited quite frequently in my past, and it is known as America's Stonehenge, and it's located in Salem, New Hampshire. Now, in Salem, New Hampshire is that area that is sometimes referred to as Mystery Hill, but it's best known as the American Stonehenge. Now, according to the carbon-14 dating, this place dates back about 4,000 years ago, and therefore it would make it the oldest structure on American soil, and it would date back also to about the same time as the building of Stonehenge. Now, there are a number of caves, and if we'll look at some of these photos here, there are a number of caves and winding corridors throughout America's Stonehenge. There is even a sacrificial altar in this place. And it must be noted that, as England's Stonehenge, this one in America had also been used as an astrological observatory. Plus, there are trail markers that will lead you to standing stones just like those in England that act as seasonal markers. What is of interest is that many believe that there was a landmass thousands of years ago in which normal-sized human beings and giants were able to cross over and come into North America. There are many cultural stories, especially around the Midwest, in which giants roamed and lived in. Many of these stories can be found in the rich and cultural history of Native Americans. But we'll delve into that later on in another installment. In conclusion, I have demonstrated that there are quite a number of ancient stone circles that can be found around the world. And when we check into the cultural backgrounds of those areas, we find also that there are stories of ancient giants. There are even a number of skeletal remains of giants in those same areas. I believe the evidence, though not exhaustive at this point, leads to the inevitable conclusion that giants had built those ancient stone circles. However, we will continue with this line of thought in another installment. For now, suffice it to say that in my next installment, we're going to look at another aspect of stone circles and find a very eerie connection between giants and ancient stone circles. Until next time, take care everyone, and God bless and keep each and every single one of you.